Hello and welcome back to Oaf Culture, where we get a new job and disappear for 2 months. Today we are discussing the brand new animated feature Batman Soul of the Dragon. I'll tell you what I liked, what I didn't like, and give my overall rating of the film. This story is about a young, hip Bruce Wayne teaming up with 3 of his classmates from martial arts training years ago, before he was Batman. It is the 1970s, and as someone who cannot remember the 70s, I must say it really feels just like the 70s to me. The first thing that I'll mention that I enjoyed is the 70s style that the writers and artists put into the movie. It would be easy to make a movie, say it takes place in 1970 whatever, and really have it take place in a sort of never time, where the time period doesn't really matter. However, the good people at WB Animation wanted us to really feel this stylized vibe of 70s American culture. Sideburns, dumb-looking pants, and afros abound. Next, I read in some Facebook comments that the art and animation styles in this movie were bad. I always go to Facebook comments underneath movie trailers because I know it will be a cesspool of, frankly, dumb and uninformed opinions. I'm happy to say that this time was no different in regard to the visuals. The character designs are all pleasant to look at. The vast majority of the action in the film features fluid animation and looks like real effort was poured into it. I'll put special emphasis on Bruce's design. It looks like a mixture of this and this, so I dig. While we're on the topic of animation, I will also draw attention to the fight choreography in this movie. I won't say that it is any more impressive than any other animated movie, but some real thought was definitely put into several scenes where we see clear and pronounced motions of kung fu-looking maneuvers, TM. You could say that this story has been done before, and I wouldn't disagree with you. However, I don't think it is a weakness of the film at all. I was engaged the whole time and generally enjoyed watching this movie. Last but not least, there is some lethality in this film. I'll touch on it in a minute with a minor gripe, but I want to mention one thing about it that I appreciated. Batman makes some lethal moves in this movie against supernatural enemies, and that's cool. There is not any hint of apprehensiveness that we see from him as he has to try to kill these beings, and I think that's good. They didn't overplay Batman's no-kill policy. There are some extra-dimensional beings invading Earth, and he just does what he ought to do in that moment against these non-human enemies who shouldn't be here. Not a real moral dilemma we are ever going to have in real life, so not a big deal. Now I must go over the few details I didn't like. I mentioned the lethality of this movie. Now Batman is working with Bronze Tiger, Lady Shiva, and Richard Dragon in this film. We see that they are all established killers of their enemies as the film introduces them as characters. On one hand, Batman probably knows that he cannot convince them to renounce lethality, and certainly not during this particular mission. On the other hand, perhaps he was a bit too complacent with them killing human beings throughout the movie. I guess if you want to explain this away, you could make the argument that he has yet to decide to what degree he wants to enforce his own rule upon other people. Is it still an enjoyable movie? Sure. I'm not incredibly bothered by it. My main complaint about the movie is as follows. There are some sexual references or implications earlier in this movie, and I really just don't think that needs to be there. It adds nothing to the plot. I will mention this later, but just wanted to list it now as a simple dislike. We could count this as something I liked also, but really it's just a detail I want to cover. This movie did a great job of introducing me to the real Richard Dragon character. We've seen characters who are sort of taking on his mantle since the New 52. Richard Dragon was a Green Arrow villain at one point in those comics, but eventually he was revealed to have only taken the name of Richard Dragon, and actually he was Ricardo Diaz Jr. We saw a plot-armored character named Ricardo Diaz on the CW's Arrow for way too long as well. Here, in Batman Soul of the Dragon, is an interpretation of the actual, original Richard Dragon character. I guess they don't usually make him Asian, but it is still closer to the real thing because he's not actually a villain in the comics, yet his name has been associated with villains for several years at this point. We also have Bronze Tiger, who is voiced by Michael Jai White, who also played the character in live action on Arrow, along with Lady Shiva, who we usually see as a villain in other Batman stuff. She is featured in Batman Arkham Origins, for example, and in that game's DLC we see that she and Bruce had some interaction during training as well. She is voiced by Kelly Hu, who also provided her voice in Arkham Origins, so that's neat. Overall, I enjoyed the movie throughout. There was never a moment where I got tired of watching, and I was genuinely interested in the characters and their goal. Now, would I recommend this movie? Depends. I think I'd recommend it to a fellow adult viewer, but I gotta say, I'm not sure WB made the right decision in taking the R rating on this. I think this concept would have been suited well toward children as well as adults. There were just some instances of violence being a bit too brutal for me to recommend for children to watch, and there was also that suggestive nature of that one scene that I mentioned earlier. There are just some things in DC animation quite often now that make me wonder if they really know who their audience should be. I am secure in my belief that if this content wasn't present, the adults who watch it wouldn't miss it. The adults who don't watch it are not going to suddenly want to watch upon learning that there's a hand-drawn nude woman in a bed at the beginning of the film. It really just doesn't make sense in any way other than trying to be edgy and remind us that DC can be mature. If you're like me, then DC already has you committed with its strong cast of characters and doesn't need to try any tricks to keep you. Seems to me like they're only succeeding in alienating kids with strict parents. As one of those kids all grown up, I must say that I cared an awful lot about Batman, so it seems like a silly mistake to alienate me. But this isn't a rant about sex and violence in the media, just a quick opinion. For what it is, through and through, I think Soul of the Dragon deserves some credit. It will not be the one animated movie we hold above all else, but that's okay. It actually didn't even feel like a Batman movie either. It was really a team of martial arts students working together, and one happened to be Batman. This is a cool concept in and of itself, I must say. So while this isn't a game changer for superhero animation, and these movies rarely are, I think it has plenty of merit, from visuals and music to simple charm and potential for enjoyment. I do recommend this movie for adults who are interested in the concept. I hesitate to recommend it for little kids. I rate this film 6.7 out of 10 different people who trained Bruce Wayne. Also, it's not a big deal, but I really gotta ask, now that we're done with the real meat of the discussion, why are you not using Kevin Conroy? He's gotta be available. Are you kidding me? This guy did fine, though. Thank you for watching this Oaf Culture video, brought to you by us, aka me, Handsome Oaf, at Oaf Culture. You can support this channel by doing the things you usually do to be nice on YouTube. However, to remind you that I'm edgy like DC, I want you to just do whatever, gosh bro, I don't care. And to really drive it home, I'm going to put a sensual image on the screen. Thank you for being here, my friend, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.